Hello everybody, Darren here, and recently I got to attend a preview event to play Lemnis Gate, an upcoming multiplayer, turn-based FPS. It's developed by Ratloop Games and published by Frontier. Now just to set some expectations, Lemnis Gate releases on the 3rd of August on Steam and will also be part of the Xbox Game Pass on day 1. It's also relatively cheap at about $18, but it's 20% off if you choose to pre-order. So what is the game and how does it play? In order to set up the concept for you, because it's just weird, I'm going to remove any of the confusing footage in the background and explain it with some incredible in-depth illustration. The game's fundamental concept is a 25-second round, also called the timeline. In a 1v1 mode, that's 1v1, one player will be the attacker and the other player will be the defender. The attacker goes first, runs out and attacks the objective, destroying it. After 25 seconds, the clock resets and then it's the defender's turn, where they have to run out and counter what the attacker just did. The attacker no longer has control over their move, instead it just plays out like a replay. So it's the defender's job to anticipate what they'll do and stop them. By killing the attacker, they disrupt the timeline and save the objective. Then the attacker goes again, but this time with a second character, and their job is to now prevent the defender who prevented and intercepted the first character. This then happens 5 times on each side before a winner is decided. So by the final turn, there's 10 characters running around attempting to attack, defend, anticipate, and intercept their enemy. Remember though, this is a 1v1. The complexity builds further when we factor in unique characters. There's 7 characters in total with unique abilities and weapons, and when playing a turn, you have to choose a different character each time. So now I think the best way to illustrate how it all works is just to take a look at one of the sessions that I played. I was playing against the YouTuber Zerkovich. We had just been paired together for our 1v1 sessions, and we were both learning and playing at the same time. In this particular mode, there is no defender or attacker. Instead, there were 4 objectives called exotic matter, a sort of floating ball that you grab and you have to bring back to your base in order to capture it. The team with more balls wins. So I'm starting off the footage here where we had just switched sides. So we'd just done 1 round out of 2, and each round has 5 turns within it. We had just drawn before because we had captured the same amount of balls, so it was all for, it was kind of all to play for still. So in choosing my character, I started off by picking Vendetta, who has a shotgun and turrets. So with my 25 seconds, I immediately ran out and placed as many turrets as I could. I ignored all the objectives instead of favoring some sort of defensive setup at the start, and then with my remaining few seconds, I just fired off some shots at the enemy base in the hope that, who knows, in the future, maybe I'll hit something.
Activating stationary unit.
Next, it was Zerkovich's turn, and he chose Striker, the sniper. Now during his turn, I have this spectator drone that can watch what he does, so I can learn and remember and hopefully counter his moves in the next run. He also has this as well, everybody does. As my character is deploying the turrets, Zerkovich is taking shots at me and manages to take out my turret and my character. Next turn, and it's my go again. This time I chose Rush, a character with dual-wielding automatic pistols and the ability to get a burst of speed. For this run, I decided to explicitly rush objectives and get as many back to base as I could within 25 seconds. You can see that when I hopped up past the turrets, it was taken out by the sniper, so I'm not disrupting any of the events, I'm just building up a timeline of defense and now capture. I managed to get 2 objectives back to base, and then it was Zerkovich's go again. Now, I didn't really capture this part of the footage well, but he also chose Rush and instead moved for the second objective that I grabbed, meaning that he got there first. So basically, with the current events, we are now both locked to 1 objective scored each. Next up, I chose Striker, the sniper, with the intention of taking out his Rush before he made it, which meant that mine would still get there. And I did. With the little bit of extra time then, I went for his sniper and I killed him before he killed my Vendetta, the guy that was building the turrets. With my remaining time, I just ran towards his objective. I'm not really sure why, but it was a bit silly because I actually shot myself in the back with Vendetta, but it didn't really matter much at this point anyway. Zerkovich now chose Toxin, who has a sort of teleport gun and also a toxic cannon, which creates these area of effect puddles of damage to those who run through it. For this round, Zerk ran to the center, grabbed an objective, and just brought it back, and he took little hits there, here and there, you know, from some of my turrets. Next, I chose Deathblow, who basically uses a rocket launcher and can also make a bubble shield. With Deathblow, I ran to the center and fired at Zerkovic's toxin before he grabbed the objective. And if you watch closely, you'll see that I actually did 4 bars of damage, and then one of my turrets actually got the kill. So just to back up for a second, this would mean that if Zerkovic's original sniper still killed my turret, this event wouldn't happen the same at all. So thinking about this, I decided to run Deathblow towards the enemy objective and just pre-fired rockets down the corridor and threw landmines everywhere I could before the timer ran out. Next, Zerkovic chose Carl and ran along the top of the map, blasting all my turrets with his precision beam laser. I then chose Capitan to immediately try and counter that move and kill anything I could and throw a few grenades in the process. This was my final play, and with the current timeline, I was up on 2 objectives scored. It's now up to Zerkovic to fix that timeline so that I don't score anything or that he just scores more. In his last turn, Zerkovic chose Deathblow, you know, the rocket launcher guy, and he jumped down, grabbed the C objective where my Deathblow was running right behind him, and if you remember, I pre-fired the corridor and managed to get a kill shot directly in his back before he could deliver the objective. And that was it. You know, it's really crazy stuff. I wanted to showcase this round in particular just because I felt like it best represented what can happen with the timeline, how you can kind of predict where players will go and counter what players do. Zerkovic got his retaliation against me though in the next round, where we played a different objective on a different map. This one had a traditional attack and defense, sort of like how I outlined before. The objective being that one player has to defend these 2 generators that have a health bar and can be shot and destroyed, and the other player just has to make sure they do shoot it and destroy it. You get points for kills and damage overall, so even if you wasn't able to destroy them, you might still be able to get a win based on how you perform. This mode just to me was not as interesting. It became a huge cluster of throwing grenades and toxic sludge into these areas, and it just seemed a lot less tactical. Granted, we were complete noobs, so that might be something to do with it, but the capture balls game mode of the other round had a lot more counterplay to it, I felt. Eventually we teamed up against some of the developers and we played a 2v2 on this map. Now this made things extremely hectic, but really tactical. Depending on the situation, me and Zerkovic would either split up and tackle both areas at once, or other times we tried pairing together to try and protect each other. Of course, by the end of the rounds of a 2v2, there are 20 characters running around in a timeline. It's pretty much an impossible amount of things to consider with how you're going to be affecting that timeline. There are a lot of unintended consequences, and there is friendly fire. And that's basically the game, and my experience with it. Now overall, my impressions are pretty good. This is quite a unique game. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it, and I think 2v2 with a friend could be a really awesome way to play it. You know, as you have a friend, you build up these strategies, and you work together to outsmart your opponents. Of course though, the game is a multiplayer FPS competing with huge titles, you know, and this almost feels like a spin-off mode to something like an Overwatch or a Rainbow Six Siege. Now, in fairness to the game, it is quite cheap. It seems to recognize its position as a smaller, kind of quirky title with a unique concept, and I think having it crossplay enabled and on Game Pass is just 100% something you should try out because of how different it is. It took me a couple hours to really start understanding the flow of the game and figuring out some tactics, and by that time the preview event was over, so I think it's a good sign that I genuinely really wanted to jump back in and play more because I could just feel myself getting better with it all the time. Now, as a fan of shooters though, there just wasn't that much shooting. You know, you do spend an equal amount of time watching your opponent as you do playing yourself, and that's partly a reason I feel like I'd probably just gravitate to a more established shooter like a Destiny or a Battlefield or whatever. Now, I didn't get any information about progression or anything like that, so I'm really just able to report on the few games I played. I will be picking this up on Xbox Game Pass just to try a little bit more, but I just, you know, I can't really see myself getting it on Steam or sticking with it for that long, just because I'll always sort of default to the biggest, more established multiplayer FPS games. Anyways, that's it for the video. Let me know what you think of Lemnis Gate. Do you think it can kind of compete for your time on its own. I know it's not directly competing with the AAA FPS games out there, but with all these games on Game Pass especially, I mean, these games are competing for your time. And I would just be interested to know if people think it can stand on its own, you know, because I'm not sure it can, even though it's quite a cool idea. Anyway, as a side note, I'm getting a new PC, and it should be the day after this video comes out. I'm hoping then to start finally putting out a bit more content more often, and I might do a little bit of an unboxing or a showcase of the PC as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, thank you very much for watching, and remember, if you want to support this series directly, you can click the join button to become a channel member. Doing so will get your name in the credits, as well as loyalty badges and emotes to use in the comments. If you don't see the join button, it means the video has been copyright claimed, but you can still join from the channel page on desktop. You can also link your account to our Discord to get a special role on there that'll give you access to the Senate House and a few other perks.